Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, for today, I actually was planning to do another video altogether. The video would have encompassed reprocessing materials in nullsec. However, I don't have high enough skills to actually reprocess it with a substantial income, and I could possibly get it to the point where it's substantial, but it would mean too much of a sacrifice in terms of other skills, so I'm leaving that as a side project for now, and it will come in later when I finally do have enough skills to actually do this. But for this moment, I'm actually going to talk about it in terms of actually scooping up loot, because a lot of people don't get why this can be such a helpful opportunity for you in nullsec itself. So obviously I have been trying to help people, especially across the board, with multiple things that they are doing, and I have said that you should pick up the loot all the time because it can get you that resources you need for building a ship or just for making that extra money to earn your ISK. But there are more reasons for you to actually pick up that loot when it is dropped. Number one, it's actually a double score for you on the usage of your time. If you were to go and mine in a sector, and this is for anybody who does mining, in about a 20 to 25 minute period for a basic miner, that is somebody who hasn't gone past 5 for any of the mining skills, you will earn something in the range of 6 million in something like a procurer. If you are in something like a retriever, you have a 15-minute time at which you're going to earn something like 3 million. So if you're counting it at retriever rate, it's 3, 6, 9, 12 million for the hour. 12 million ISK is quite a good amount, and it is quite a substantial amount for you to have over a 60-minute period. Then you have the next one which you can get, which is with the procurer every 20 minutes, as I said, 6 million. It does have a slightly higher efficiency, which is what gives it that boost in terms of pulling things in. And when you count that up, you're looking at 20 at 6 million for 20 minutes, then it goes 12, then it goes 18 million in that hour. So your rate increases. Then you have your coveter. Now the coveter doesn't just double what you had on the previous run, it does increase it substantially, but you're looking at somewhere in the range of 10 million to the coveter's hold. This is the coveter 1, you do get the coveter 2 as well. And when you think about this here, the coveter will take a substantially larger amount of time, and it's going to pull out 10 million. It might take 25 minutes. So looking at it, you're looking at about 20 million per hour, and there's a short period of 10 minutes which is outlying over there, and that will be 2/5 of that figure. And as I said, it's about 10 million, and 2/5 is quite easy to work out from the total amount of time, and you simply have 4 million as your total. So you have something like 24 million coming out an hour with a coveter. Coveter 2 is just around the same thing. It's just maybe about a 2 million increase per hour, or a 4 million increase per hour, and that's within the same class of ship with slight upgrades. So you're looking at that 24 million an hour. Now you might be thinking that's quite a good increase, it's quite a good income for you to have. But here is the reason why PvE with the loot coming in can actually be so much more rewarding. Number one, you can make a good relation with the manufacturing personnel of your corp, of your alliance, and just because you're having them reprocess things for you and you work out a split with somebody who has max reprocessing on scrap metaling, you can actually end up with a lot cheaper ships. You could even do something like have them reprocess ores for you, which would be another bonus to you. So yeah, you could actually score way more than the person who just has 24 million coming in an hour from an asteroid belt, and that's per one ship. Obviously if you have more than one, your rates go up. And if you're talking about the capital mining vessels, when they come in, that is going to be an entirely different situation, because an entire belt is something like 100 million ISK per belt, and if I'm correct, the capital mining vessels are just going to mine out that belt in a matter of minutes. It's going to take something less than 30 minutes for you to clean up an entire belt, and that will be it. So let's go back one more step and let's explain the difference in ratting. So in ratting, you get a direct ISK reward every time you complete an encounter. In the small version, remember this here will be equal to retrievers, or it actually could be pushed down even below a retriever to something as small as, let's see, what would it really be equal to? Something as small as basically the venture, right? Venture is a single mark, that's what it can take. You're looking at an average figure of around 10 million in total. No, not 10. 8 million in total ISK rewards from that low level activity. So there you go, 8 million for the hour, plus you're picking up loot which can be between 2 to 5 million. It does vary depending on what drops, because sometimes they can just drop the debris and they won't drop items, and that they can make a difference. And sometimes they can drop items which are small, medium and large class exactly the same, like hardness or other modules that are universal across the range of a shop, like heat sinks and so forth, and obviously there's a lot of them. Those items are always the same no matter which range you're going to scrap them in, so those are lower rated items. You could also get them, and that's what keeps your loot between that 1 to 5 million mark. You can get 5 million if, say for example, you're taking on T10s and you get MK9 missiles, you get MK9 shields, you get MK9 shield extenders, armor extenders, armor reps. You get it. All of these things can actually help you big time in that manner. Now, when you pull it in, you're pulling in 2 million plus 8 million. This is a 1 hour ratting period. Basically, it's not exactly 1 hour. You can actually double it up if you are fast enough with your ratting. So in 1 hour, there will be 16 plus maximum of 10, 26 million an hour. If you're looking at that there, already at the lowest rate, you've already beat mining with a venture. However, the amount of ISK that you're putting up for the initial venture that you're going for is quite high. And if you go for the following method, you decide to have someone else do the reprocessing for you, you can actually establish a relationship with your manufacturer where you go, okay, here's the manufacturing figure, it's X amount in millions. So right, here's what we want to manufacture, right, you'll need materials, here you can scrap this, you can take A, B and C, the rest I want for sale. And say for example, you give them your titanium and your pyrite, which are some of the slower achieving resources. So they take your titanium, they take your pyrite, and they give you everything back. Now titanium and pyrite will accomplish somewhere near 10% of your total figure. You can also make a 10% split across all the materials that come out of scrapping, and you're actually helping them with small figures while helping yourself. Now for a max level scrapper, say for example we had that 10 million loot, they looking at scrapping it out and getting somewhere in the range of 11.5 to 12 million depending on what is being reprocessed. So that is what they're getting in terms of raw resources. By you making sure that you're only getting your 10 million value back, you're actually winning in the end, because they're going to have a good relation with you and you're going to have a good relation with them. If you stack it up to the figures where I'm going at the moment, where I'm over 100 million to an item, you could actually also be in a similar class when it comes to these things. Now I'm just going to stop this and I'm going to go back. Now these things seem really crazy at this low level. However, it's not yet over. This is low level at the basic level of earning, right? It's a 1 hour earning period and it's worth just picking up loot. Now there is obviously the negative side where you can only make $1 million of each of them in terms of loot, so that's 2 million, and with the 10% it's only about 200,000, so it's not really all that much. And when you count it all together, that makes your entire hour worth 10 million. You actually win against something like the ventures, but you lose against something like Retriever, because they're making 12 million per hour. And not Retriever, the first level of mining vessel, you do win against it at that point. The next thing which you're going to have at your advantage at the same level is if you increase your ship's power and you increase to the next level of anomaly. So you take on mediums. Mediums can be a bit time consuming depending on what type of ship you are running. If you are running a high class faction cruiser, you're most probably going to fly through it at a good rate. You'll be able to do enough damage taking out the big ships in the start so that you don't take heavy damage in the end. Then you can take out all the small ships in rapid succession so that you have easy targets to knock out towards the end of the fight. Now let's get back to this point where I'm talking about taking on the medium. A medium can take you 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes. The reward from a medium, and this is by record, is 16 million ISK for the medium. Now, as I said, it can take you 1 hour to 1 hour 30 minutes depending on ship that you are using. A large can take you 1 hour 10 minutes to 1 hour 20 minutes solo. And remember, these are solo times. When you double, all of a sudden those times can shrink down to no time whatsoever. You can do a medium in 20 minutes. Now obviously, does that mean that the medium was that much simpler? No, it just means that because of the number of people in the single activity, you were capable of putting double the impact on items, and instead of small ships outrunning you, when they were on another target and you managed to catch them with webs, they kept in line and you were able to apply more damage. Or if both of you have battleships and you're using 3 webs apiece, you actually slow them down so far that they take the same damage as battleships and they are one-shot knockouts. So instead of it taking 6 hits to knock out a frigate, or 3 hits to take out a destroyer, or 3 hits to take out a cruiser, and about 8 hits to take out a battleship, you end up with that much lower figure of time taken to do your damage. This here also helps you with establishing a much faster knockout of the entire anomaly. You also take a lot lower amount of damage, so you don't have to really worry so much about your capacitor. Your mind doesn't have to do multiple calculations all at once. Your focus fire on what you are taking out, one person can take out all the small ships, and while the other takes out all the big ships. All of this becomes an option for you when you play the game in these types of modes, and depending on your type of ship. So you can always pair a battle cruiser and a battleship. That will make it an absolute beast for you in terms of taking things out, and your income increases. But let's get back to the medium. So the medium has an average income of about 10 million. Now yes, I did say that there are 10 million in loot. Now at some points your loot can be a little bit less, at other points it can be a little bit more. You can end up with a pool that is somewhere in the range of 8 million at the lowest to a range of about 15 million at the highest. That's if you have enough of a luck from the drops to get quite a lot of high level gear. So there you go, this is quite a big increase. Plus you got about 15 million in terms of bounty. So 15 plus 10 will give you 20. If you want to add the 5, it is a 30 million extraction. Once again, it is better than mining at its best, and it's also one of the better ones for you to do at this point. And when you're going for the scrapping, you're also getting that high reward loot. Now obviously this here allows you to get towards your ships a lot faster. Let's say for example you wanted to build something really crazy like a capital vessel. Capital vessels use billions worth of ISK to actually build them together, and if you're only going to put aside what you are earning in terms of materials for that production, and you are at the right type of post where your team is actually making capital ship pieces, you can end up with all of your capital ship pieces at a really low cost. So yeah, that is one of the things which you have to understand about this situation. You could do it for that purpose instead. For you, instead of it making up multiple pieces of you mining, remember when you're mining for 24 million, you are refining 24 million worth of resources. You don't get that bonus from the reprocessing like you do with scrap metal. Scrap metal, the reason why you're getting that bonus is certain items have very low values with high rewards in terms of resources, while it doesn't have the same ratio for the other items. People don't really take them for their scrapping. So right, you have the scrap metal coming in. All of this is now filling up your material requirements. You have quite a bit of ISK earned on the side, and let's say for example you keep going at the medium level with the team, and the loot split is, as I'm saying, it's 10 million, so you can say 5 million per person. So 5 million at 15, that means 20 million. Now this is where teams come in to be very important. That's at medium and large. So you're getting 20 million per hour. And if you, not 20 million per hour, 20 million every 20 minutes, that makes it 60 million per hour when you team up. So that's 2 individuals. It's quite a big increase. If you go through with a battleship, it's about a 10-minute wipeout of a medium, and looting will be done by somebody else. Really, looting at the point when you're using a capital vessel isn't really a good idea. You can have a second person come in and loot for you. It still works out way cheaper in that manner, because the reward is 15 million an hour. Not an hour, every 10 minutes, so it's times 6. And when you say 15 times 6, it becomes crazy. And I am actually making a mistake. It will be 7.5 plus 5, so you'll end up at 12.5. 12.5 every 20 minutes. That's 37.5 million for the total per hour when it's just 2 people doing mediums. My bad, I did make that mistake. I forgot that you have to carry over the figure that you lose. So yeah, there you go. It's quite a good figure. It's not going to hurt you in the long run. It's a good amount of ISK for you to earn per hour, and there's a lot of reward in there for you to build ships. Remember, you're making 15 million worth of resources for yourself every hour as well. 15 million an hour in resources. If you times that by 4 hours in a day, that's 60 million. If you times that by the 30 days in the month, 60 times 3 is 180. 1.8 billion. 1.8 billion ISK in resources for you to throw into manufacturing. You still have 7.5, which was coming out of each and every. No, you had more than that. You had 7.5. You had 15. You had 22.5. No, you had 21.5. No, you had 22.5, sorry. 22.5 is per hour. That translates across the 4 hours to just under 100 million. You had 90 million an hour as an easy estimate, and you times that by 3, that will give you 2.7 billion. So 2.7 billion in ISK to spend in the game, plus you had 1.8 billion in resources. So with 1.8 billion, you could build a ship. You could build big vessels all the time in the game, and on top of that, you're earning enough ISK that you can keep pushing yourself forward. So that is one of the things which is crucial at this level. You're already way past the Coveter and the Retriever, and when it comes to cost of ratting versus the cost of mining can cost you near $1 billion, right? That is if you want the fastest resource harvesting. That's about a 12-minute to a Coveter load. So yeah, that's when things get really crazy, because the figures go out of whack. As I said, it's about a 24-minute with low-level specs. And if you're counting this here, it's 12 minutes to a load. You count that 5 loads in an hour. You're thinking about how much is coming out in each load for that ship. So you're thinking around 15 million at the maximum. 15 times 5, you've got just over 75 million an hour coming out from mining. 75 versus what you're getting in ratting. Obviously there's no comparison on that. That's when you have a really expensive ship at the low level. Now when I'm talking about ratting, you could actually have a similar situation on the ratting, where you put $1 billion worth of value in the ratting, and those figures go up as well on the ratting side, because you won't be earning at that slow rate. You'll start getting closer towards the capital ship range. As I said, the capital ship just wipes it out. 15 million and it's times 6. 15 times 6 and they win instantly, because that's 90 million, as I said. And that's the two extremes. You can invest heavy funds for something like a capital vessel, or you can invest heavy funds for a mining vessel, and that's the two differences. Although the one is 20 billion ISK and the other is 1 billion, the two sums are quite a big difference apart. Then there is still, on top of that, there the large anomalies for you to think about ratting. When it comes to large, your figure in reward is upwards of 20 million. Now I don't know what's the full figure solo, because I haven't been able to complete one solo. It's a bit too risky to do it on your own, because you get scrammed and webbed way too often. It makes it too dangerous for big ships. I'm suspecting that it has somewhere in the range of about 30 million per large, and it's a 1 hour 10 minutes to a 2 hour completion of that particular anomaly, depending on the ship you use. If you're counting it as 30 million an hour, you do lose against the Venture. Not the Venture, against the Coveter. However, you also do have a chance of winning in the situation because of the amount of loot that you pick up from a large. From a large, you can pick up anywhere between 15 to 20 million every time you will have to dock and offload between each anomaly. That is how rich the larges are. So yeah, that's something else for you to consider when it comes to the ratting. So yes, if you are going to go around in a fleet of a two-man team against larges, it's going to take you about 30 minutes to complete it. And as I said, it's 15 million to a load. It's plus 15 million every single time. I've never seen a large with less than 15 million. I think it's the limit that they've set on the loot drops from it, so you will get the average of 15 million. So 15 million in pure loot gathering. So there you go, your first part is 15 million. The next part that you are gaining is that solid 30 million that's split two ways, which is 30 million plus 15 makes it 45. Split it by 2 so that you know exactly what each person should be earning. You're earning 22.5 every 30 minutes. Complete that in an hour, you're earning 44.5. Your overall investment in this term when it comes to ratting should be somewhere in the range of about 500 to 600 million, right? That is what your ship's value should be. It could be all the way up to about 750 million. You could be hitting the billion mark. If you have something like a Macarial, Vindicator, Nightmare, you're looking at upwards of $1 billion as your value. So 4 to 5 billion, actually it's 4 billion for the ship itself, and another 2 billion once completely rigged if you're rigging it out cheaply. If you're rigging it out on the high spec, it's about 20 billion. Those ships are an entirely different situation. They're very close to the capital level of completion, but I'm not going to go to the capital level of completion. That is insane. So if you are using your high-end ships at that rate, a 3-man team could be really efficient, because when you increase it, you don't just reduce the time by a third, you actually reduce the time by a lot more than a third. You would actually reduce it to something like 10 minutes to a completion. So 45 million every 10 minutes, and you want to work that out to a 60-minute period. And this is for larges. For mediums, it doesn't work out as well, because the number of enemies aren't high enough from the first wave. Where the first wave has 5, then the next wave has 6. You get it? That's why you don't want to have more than 2 people on a medium. But a large, you can have up to 3 people, because you start at 6. That means each person has 2 ships to knock out, and if anybody is helping with taking out one of the small ships, you win. You can go with double battleships and a single battle cruiser. You can go with 3 battleships, and you'll still win at the same rate, because you don't spend as much time on every individual ship. So yes, you're going to apply way more damage. Your damage buffs are going to be through the roof. You're going to achieve your highest possible output against every ship that you face off against, and that is really going to help you in the long run with those types of fights. So let's move on, talking about the value with a 3-man fleet. You can take it up to a 6-man fleet on the largest, but I would suggest capping it out at 3 for the maximum earn. So 45 times 6 is the easiest way to do this here, because that's a 60-minute period. That'll be 270 million an hour divided 3 ways. That makes it 90 million per individual. 90 million is what you can pull out per person in that period. Once again, you can strip the mining rate, but it is a team operation, and that really does hold you back in terms of your full force in the game. So yeah, there is something for you to think about. 3-man for that type of a reward is quite high. It does mean that you have a lot of safety in terms of numbers. You can clear a lot of rooms all at once, and the picking up of loot is where things get really crazy, because at the end of an hour, everybody will have full loads. You're going to try and put it all into one reprocessor, have that reprocessor do all of yours as a group item, and then give you all a fair split of the profits. Obviously you don't want it to be everybody keeping what they can pick up, because that way there's some people are too quick, or some people have auto salvages. That will really change the whole metric for you when it comes to that part of the game. Okay, so let's move on to the next crazy thing in this whole situation, and that is when you really start to amp up your earning. If you hit something like a scout, an inquisitor, or a dead space. Now scouts are where your money just goes through the roof, and there isn't anything like it in terms of reward from the other activities. In a scout, you're looking at an average income of about 30 million per person in your 3-man team, right? So about a 90 million is for the total. They don't spawn every single time on the hour. You can't have 3 in a sector every single time. It is very hard to get it. You have to rat everything out in your sector to get scouts to spawn. So if you have a scout in your sector, you're looking at about a 30 million isk in bounties. And when it comes to the reward drop from regular loot inside the scouts, you have a much higher count in terms of loot. You have something close to 30 million isk from that entire scout. The scout will take a 3-man team about 20 minutes to complete, because of the high volumes of enemies that you're going to face off against, because it's basically facing off double a large at that point, and that is how crazy a scout can be. So looking at it in that term, you're getting double the loot. You're going to be able to take this back, and you're going to be able to salvage all of that loot at the end of it. If you're counting that as your reward, there's 30 million for you for the hour, plus there's another 10 million for you in terms of loot. So 40 million in 20 minutes. If you count that into an hour, it's 120 million an hour. And on top of that, there is the loot that comes out, which is particularly for the scout. That is your elite loot and your boxes that can range anywhere from 1 million all the way up to 120 million from something as weak as a scout. And that is just the reality behind it. That's how the reward system goes. So that is the big bonus on top of everything. And depending on how many people have a split, it could be 20 million extra to you, it could be a couple 100,000 added to you, or it just could be worthless to you at the end of the day. So let's move on to the next one. That is an Inquisitor. Now once again, in an Inquisitor, a 3-man team can do this here. It is quite rewarding, and this is where things kind of take a heavy shift on both sides. Inquisitors are an entirely different level of ratting. They take you up one above the scout. You're looking at about a 45 million is per individual in terms. No. You're looking at about a 35 million is per person reward. It doesn't have that much of an increase on a scout, but it does have an increase in the drops of elites, and its chambers at the end do have far higher drop rates. You do have higher counts of enemies, which is why you're getting the 5 million extra per individual. So yeah, you get 35 million, and its average drop rate is between 10 and 250 million. So yeah, that is another crazy one to go for. Inquisitors can be very, very expensive in terms of their loot drops in that sense, and that is where your big loot comes from in the end. You still have around about the same amount of loot picked up. It may be somewhere closer to about 35 million or 40 million in total loot that comes out of an Inquisitor, but honestly, with the high value loot that can come out of it at the max, it does change things in a big sense. And yeah, you might be looking at another 7 million on top of what you would earn from a scout. So it does make quite a big difference if you're doing them hourly or clearing an entire range of sectors of Inquisitors and Scouts as a 3-man team. And last but not least, we have dead spaces. Now a dead space has a high level earning. It has around 45 to 50 million isk per individual for a 3-man team. Now you can do it in a 3-man team provided one of you is a guardian. Now that is where the catch comes in. The guardian takes a loss in terms of usage of resources, but yeah, you can do it as a 3-man team. This activity, unlike the Scout or Inquisitor, is a 30-minute activity. So 45 million is your total reward for the Inquisitor's bounties. The Dead Space bounty. The next thing which you're going to earn is faction gear, faction loot, and you're looking at anywhere from 120 million to 750 million per Dead Space. So yes, this is a substantial increase. 750 million on a Dead Space is a massive amount of loot, and you do get quite a bit out of it. You can even get 1 billion out of a Dead Space if you're really lucky. You could push well above 1 billion as well. I do know that it is a possibility because of the value of items that drop within it. So yeah, those are really crazy ones for you to think about. So your faction drops come out of it. So faction rigs, not faction rigs, faction debris. You get your C-type rewards out of it, which can be crazy expensive. As I was saying, you could get something like 6 missiles out of one of these, and 6 missiles at 200 million a piece is 1.2 billion. So yeah, that depends on which space you sorry, all depends on which space you're in. Different weapons have different values, and that is how it goes. Now, beyond all of this, there are other things that influence it, and you can go even further beyond where I've gone with what I'm talking about. So yeah, you can go all the way up to fleet rallies and special fleet rallies, but those are special conditions, and the earning you make out of it is no comparison to what you make on the lower end. I do not know what the minimum requirement to complete a fleet rally is, so I cannot speculate on it. I cannot say whether you can do it with 10 battleships at the minimum, or whether you need 20 battleships at the minimum to complete a fleet rally. That is one of the reasons why it is not being added to my list as an instant. So sorry about that if anybody was hoping for that one to be added, but it does have its own loot value. So yeah, that is everything that I had to talk about. So catch you all in the next one, and have a good day.